Governor Palin has announced that her 17-year-old daughter, Bristol, is pregnant and will have the baby and will marry the father of the baby. Is this a campaign issue for you?
Well, no, it's not a campaign issue for me. I hope there's not an attempt to make it a campaign issue. You know, the United States has been dealing for decades now with all kinds of cultural and values issues, and I don't think there's an American family that hasn't been touched by those issues one way or the other. I suspect if we stopped an average delegate here, there would be an issue with a child or a relative or whatever. The thing that's striking to me is that both in the case of Governor Palin and her daughter, with pregnancies that had their own problems, they both have chosen life. And I think that's going to resonate much more strongly with the people at this convention.
Do you think it will really turn out the socially conservative base, the fact that Governor Palin is on the ticket now, more so than if someone else had been selected as the running mate, or do they just really look at the top of the ticket?
No, I think it's been well observed that Senator McCain over the years has had a little bit of a rocky relationship with us conservatives. I'm a big fan of his, a supporter of his. I endorsed him very early, but he and I have argued on occasion about various issues. He is a maverick. He's an independent thinker. But I think that in view of that, his platform, his running mate choice, how he did at the event out in California a few weeks ago at Saddleback Church, all these things have served, I think, to increase the enthusiasm level of a lot of the conservative base. So I think he's hit a grand slam home run with the VP selection.
So how does that translate to policy once he's elected, if he is elected? Let's say Supreme Court nominations aside.
Well, on all of those issues, Senator McCain has been a pretty solid conservative. He'll occasionally do things that are a little bit in a different direction, but he's been very clear about the kind of judges he wants, the philosophy that they should hold. He's actually been better than the rest of the Republican Party on issues like runaway spending and earmarks. I actually believe he's the only Republican that had a chance to win the White House this year, and I suspect he might be the only Republican that has a chance of carrying Minnesota, which I think he's got a good chance of doing.
Is that why the convention is here this year? Is that why the Democrats were in Colorado?
Well, it was interesting when the choice was made 4 years ago about the convention. We think we've seen in Minnesota and in Wisconsin and in Michigan some trend lines that have been moving in our direction. And there's a lot of folks here that have the same values that the Republican Party does, and we certainly hope that after the convention, maybe we'll have an even better chance of carrying the state.
There's been a lot of talk this year that the influence of religious conservatives has really waned, as shown by the nomination of Senator McCain, through the primary process. Is the influence of the kind of people you usually speak for going down?
I don't think so, but look, I don't think we had as much influence as we were given credit for 4 or 8 years ago. The voters that are in church on Sunday and at work on Monday and in the voting booth on Tuesday are a significant part of the Republican coalition. And they will remain a significant part, at least in my view, for the foreseeable future, largely because a lot of these cultural and values issues that the country's debating, things like the sanctity of life and whether we ought to change the traditional definition of marriage, those are issues where there's some pretty significant differences between the two parties.